Did Ryan Winterton just play himself into an NHL role?
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Seattle hockey fans, welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you your favorite team, the Seattle Kraken, every single day. My name is Erica Ayala, your host of Locked On Kraken, been your host since the very beginning, also an accredited media member, headed to Milano Cortina. I can't believe we're just months away from another Olympics, and I will be there covering the games, the men's and women's ice hockey tournament for you. All right. Before we get into this post-game wrap-up, want to let you know today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. You can download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com, and you can win up to $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. On today's show, I'm going to give you my post-game reactions to the last preseason game. Then you might have seen some of this also on social media. Then we're going to dive into Ryan Winterton. What did we hear from Lane Lambert? How did Wintz himself feel after the game? And finally, we'll wrap up with, I was able to go to morning skate earlier today on Wednesday, and I got to speak with Tye Kartye, who also got a shout out from Lane Lambert after Wednesday night's game. That will be what we get into. We'll talk also a little bit about Joey Daccord, Berkeley Catton, etc. But let's start with reactions to this game. So the Seattle Kraken do get a win, but it wasn't what I would consider a convincing win. 4-2 win over the Edmonton Oilers. We saw Joey Daccord in net for this very young roster for Edmonton. If you listen to the Kraken audio network, you heard Everett Fitzhugh earlier in the week talk about how, he had a pretty good source saying that it wasn't going to be the full roster here for Edmonton. So this was an interesting last game for Seattle because there are some guys fighting for spots, especially because of the injuries that the Kraken are still dealing with. Speaking of injuries, we got another injury update. Unfortunately, we see that Riker Evans now out for a 6-week window. Here's what Lane Lambert had to say earlier today about Winterton.
I think we already sent out an update on him. Obviously, not ideal. And, we'll have to find a way to deal with that and move forward.
How about Vince?
And this is Vince Dunn.
He's progressing. I think all four of those guys, McCann and Stevenson, Montour and Dunn, are all progressing. So we'll see where we are come tomorrow.
So that was Lane Lambert speaking before the game. The Seattle Kraken are moving morning skate back to Climate Pledge Arena. For those who don't know, I've talked about it before on the show. But so Riker Evans out. Vince Dunn day-to-day. Jared McCann, who I did see, he was actually talking to Darnell Nurse after the game as we were coming out of the locker room. He's day-to-day. We've got Brandon Montour is not back yet. We know that Cabo Caco out for 6 weeks. Riker Evans out for 6 weeks, upper body. I think it's upper body. And then there is Chandler Stevenson. Chandler Stevenson was at morning skate today. Let me get this out of here. Chandler Stevenson was at morning skate today, and he was, by the time I got to the ice, taking face-offs with the centerman. They were practicing some things, lots of skills towards the end of morning skate. But we are still waiting to see what the full update is there. This game overall, the Seattle Kraken again get the win, but they were outshot 34-17 in this game. Faceoffs were 60-40 in favor of the Oilers. The power play 2 of 6 for the Seattle Kraken, but they were 4 of 5 on the penalty kill. There was plenty of opportunity on the penalty kill, some undisciplined things. You'll hear from Lane Lambert in a little bit that just, he even had to switch things on the line combinations to get things going. And some of that maybe had to do with fatigue, which I inadvertently talked about fatigue. I asked Lane Lambert about fatigue within the context of back-to-backs earlier this morning, before at morning skate, I should say. And it's interesting to hear Lane after the game lean into fatigue and giving these guys a break a little bit more. So we'll get into that. Overall, the Seattle Kraken again get the win. Was this what the Seattle Kraken needed for evaluation purposes? Well, I don't know. To be honest, it didn't look like a great game overall. And I hope it's not the kind of game that we have to get used to seeing the Seattle Kraken play. Again, they did get the win, so maybe we take it, especially given what we had to endure last season. But for my liking, I would have liked them to be a little sharper in this game, and that just never came to pass. But we'll get to hear from Lane Lambert actually in just a bit here. So let's go to Lane, and I want you to hear what he talks about after this game, what stood out to him.
Can you kind of explain your thought process on the shuffle you had on the right wing? The second through fourth lines, they seem to shuffle throughout the game. What were you looking for, and did you see it?
I did out of Winterton. There was... Anytime you shuffle the lines, you're looking for some kind of a spark. I didn't think we were sharp, and so, you move people around a little bit, try and create a spark. And I thought that Gaudreau, Winterton, and Kartye played well.
Lane, what did you see out of your starting goaltender tonight in the final tune-up game here?
I thought he played well. I thought he was sharp. He had multiple situations where there was some traffic in front, and from that standpoint, I thought he played really well. Again, like I say, we have some areas we have to clean up with that, and maybe not expose him so much, but he played well when he had to.
Hey, Lane, you had Winterton's had a bunch of scoring chances, and tonight obviously he finished a couple of them. What's your thoughts about the way he played tonight and throughout camp?
I liked the way he played, obviously. It's not necessarily just because he scored. I mean, it's always, you can always like a guy when he scores. Maybe, he might score, and there's other things in his game that he didn't do well, but he did a lot of things well, and he's done a lot of things well in camp. He's in position, he skates well. He looks to me like he fits in potential situations. So when you talk about training camp and you talk about a last game, which we talked about this morning, make an impression, he made an impression.
I mean, I love that. He made an impression. And this is a Ryan Winterton who's been with the organization for a little bit here. I agree that he had a really good camp. And what would it take to see Ryan Winterton make this squad? You've got McCann coming back from injury, Stevenson coming back from injury. Who are the guys that can shift and shuffle around? And even in speaking to some media members at today's preseason game, that is the exciting potential, but also the frustrating reality of being the Seattle Kraken right now, because there are some guys that potentially are holding up and taking roster spots that could belong to young promising stars like Ryan Winterton. So can Winterton make this NHL roster, or will he have to just kind of bide his time and play in the AHL and wait for an opportunity that may or may not come? I don't know the answer, but we're going to hear a little bit from Ryan Winterton, break down what worked for him. We'll hear a few more snippets about his game. And And then also hear the Tye Kartye interview and break down what is making him successful and what he'll need to be successful to crack this particular Seattle Kraken roster. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. When you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your mobile device. Monarch is built for people with busy lives like me. I use Monarch Money. I love the dashboards. I love the cash flow dashboard in particular. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visualizations, as I just mentioned, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. And you don't want to let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. So use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com. And you can do that in your browser on your mobile device. And that will get you half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year by visiting monarchmoney.com and using code LOCKEDONNHL. Back here for another episode of Locked On Kraken. Erica L. Ayala, your host. Again, I am going to the Olympics. I'm super excited for that. Also a contributor for CBS Sports. Been bouncing around, covering a lot of WNBA. And oh, baby, Napheesa Collier. Ooh, best be lucky Minnesota doesn't share a rink or an arena with an ice hockey team, because she scorched the earth, the sun, the moon, everything with some of her comments and insights on conversations that she's had with WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert. So you can head over to cbssports.com if you are also a WNBA fan. Also, PWHL finally dropped their schedule, and we are going to talk about that for the PWHL Seattle team on Locked On Kraken later this week, especially with the guys having 2 days off. But we're also going to talk about that on the Women's Hockey Report, which lives on the Locked On NHL YouTube and audio platform channel. Make sure you go check that out if you are not already subscribed and you want to hear more about women's hockey. That's where you can find the Locked On Women's Hockey show as part of the Locked On NHL channel. We don't have our own dedicated YouTube page just yet, but if you do want to just follow women's hockey, head over to women's_hockey_report on TikTok. And that's where you can find some of our content. Ryan Winterton. I loved what Lane Lambert said. He was looking for a spark from Winterton. He got it. 2 goals from Ryan Winterton in this game. And it looks like he fits in certain potential situations. I think he almost caught himself, if I'm being honest, and was like, he said he looks like he fits. And then he was like, yeah, in like potential situations. I don't know. I was talking again to some people on Press Row, and we wonder if Winterton is more than likely someone who gets called up as opposed to someone who starts on an NHL roster. And again, that's where I say, and I know we've talked about this a lot in the offseason. We talked about it a lot last season. And I think I was a little more conservative off the hop, just saying, all right, let's feel it out. But the Stevenson contract blocking Shane Wright, I know, is something that burns the grits of Seattle hockey fans. And, you know, I think this season we're going to see how some of those lengthy contracts, but also some of the pickups in the offseason that maybe are they're NHL caliber players that give you a steady hand, but what is the ceiling comparative to some of these young guys that if we just fight it through with them in their learning curve, we might be better on the other side. That's kind of how I feel about things right now. But let's hear Ryan Winterton talk about, you know, what he understands his directive to be and how he felt after this game.
Chances this preseason must have felt good to get a couple go in tonight.
Yeah, it was a good way to get it started. Kind of, don't know if I've had one easier than that. But yeah, it's good to get on the board and, just kind of play my game.
On the second one, What was your thinking? You were obviously, you and Freddie were kind of, must have been thinking about what the other guy was going to do. So what happened there?
Yeah, it was a good wall play by Kartye, and I kind of knew he had numbers since their D-man kind of pinched on Kartye. So Freddie had all the guys all over him and somehow found a way to get it to me. And, I was just walking down the center, just try to get it up.
What have you been hearing from the coaching staff about the way you've been playing and your ability to stick as long as you've been here so far?
Yeah, it's been, kind of positive reviews, but, again, take it day by day and just keep trying to, work as hard as I can. And, like you said, stay here another day. So, yeah.
One of the things that we've heard a lot about Freddie is that he's the kind of guy that can adapt to whoever he's playing with on his wings. What kind of your experience been like with that, and what do you notice about how he plays that makes him easy to play with?
Yeah, he's been awesome. Like I said on the ice, great guy, but just super skilled, knows where he's supposed to be, knows where you're supposed to be. So, it makes it easy playing with a guy like that.
What do you make of this game overall? What did you like from the team? What do you think are still areas for improvement?
Yeah, I thought it was good. Lane said, in the second we, kind of took our foot off the pedal there for a little bit. We kind of did that, a couple of games in Calgary. So I think just playing a full 60, but, first and third I thought were really good. And, just put a full 60 together and we should be all right.
On the shorty, when did you kind of realize that you had an opportunity opening up there to really jump in and kind of take over that pass?
Yeah, I kind of saw their D wasn't really, back checking to help their goalie and, kind of put their goalie under pressure. And, I kind of saw him, I kind of cheated a little bit and went to his forehand, and I think he just fanned on it. And, it was a pretty easy one for me. But, it was just reading the goalie.
That's good. Thanks, Mike.
Awesome. Thank you.
Chances this.
So Ryan Winterton there, I mean, I like how Winterton is able to adapt his game. I like that he has chemistry with Tye Kartye, who we're going to hear from in the next segment. And again, he's impressing Lane Lambert. Tye Kartye and Ryan Winterton. I think their work ethic and their grittiness is something that's going to stand out in a Lane Lambert system. But again, where do they fit in this system? There is a little bit of a log jam when it comes to forwards. And, I don't know. Do these injuries leave a little room open, at least on a temporary basis? Because, you got to give these young guys a chance. You have to give them a shot. But I continue to say it, the Chandler Stevenson contract especially, just assuming that he doesn't make a more of a splash and a more significant impact than he did last season, that's really going to hurt the Kraken in a year where it's a tight schedule, condensed schedule in some ways because of the Olympic break. You're trying to work your way out of the mess that was last season, to the tune that you got rid of a brand new head coach. And, the conversation is still apt when we talk about, is this a Seattle Kraken team that can kind of win over fans even when they're not winning? And how important is that? But how long are fans going to stick around? I know I've been talking to fans, around the rink when I'm at KCI, and people are getting fatigued. People want to see the Seattle Kraken be able to win games. And although I like Lane's philosophy, the roster itself, I was talking to, again, some media members, and is this a team that can win? Is this a team that can push to try and get into the playoffs and maybe overachieve? I don't think to the season 2 success, but can they at least overachieve to make things a little competitive down the stretch? I don't know. And the setbacks that we saw tonight, it's still preseason. I mean, there's still players that are integrating, and wasn't the full roster that we're going to see even for the home opener, let alone in a month or two. I just don't know. because Lane, he has an authoritative style, perhaps in a different way than Dan Bylsma. That's been very evident. And yet we still saw some slippage. You just heard Ryan Winterton talk about that. So I don't know, Kraken fans, but we're going to find out soon. That was the last preseason game, 2 days of rest and team building. I believe there's a season ticket holder event that's happening on Thursday. So, or some special event. So I think it'll be good for the players to get some rest and then focus. They get back after it on Saturday, and they have some days before the home opener against Anaheim, right? So I wanted to focus on Winterton and Kartye. As far as Berkeley Catton, I don't know. I think I really wish he could play in the AHL. Some of the penalties, and Lane Lambert talked about that a little bit, but some of the penalties were just him being out of position, maybe him being gassed or being out muscled. And 3 penalties. I mean, penalties were a little bit of the name of the game. I was talking to RJ over from Emerald City Hockey, and, we were getting into that. But I just don't think this is the year that we see Berkeley Catton full-time. I think the Kraken would be smart to extend his time with the club as long as possible. But I don't think that we're seeing quite enough from Berkeley Catton to make a case for him to stick around. But Winterton might be different. And I had my questions about Tye Kartye, but Lane seems to like what he's doing. And I do think that Tye has gotten more comfortable as the preseason has gone on. We'll talk to Tye Kartye, or I'll have you listen to my conversation with Tye Kartye from earlier today, coming up on Locked On Kraken. Thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination, your first listen, your midday listen, or your late night listen. Either way, we appreciate you. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Follow us wherever you get your audio podcasts. Had a little bit of a breakdown of new threats on an audio-only episode. So again, make sure you subscribe. Also listening on audio. That was mostly because I was traveling, so it was just easier to be able to record and not have to worry about video. So wanted to break down, though, Oscar Fiskar Molgaard. Don't think he had as a productive as a game on Wednesday night as I would have liked to see, but I think overall the body of work in camp has been solid. And I think he's also someone else who we might not see him, at least not full-time. Maybe he's after deadline. Again, RJ and I are talking about this after deadline call up. Does he get a call up if there are injuries? Maybe that's the case. I do like Molgaard's game, though, but both RJ and I agree that we'll likely see him play for Denmark. I mean, RJ was a little bit more confident than likely, but I always leave a little wiggle room. I've seen some devastated hockey players, not to mention fan bases, when they were not picked for an Olympic cycle. So on the women's side specifically, I know it's a little different for the men because NHLers haven't been able to play in the Olympics for a little bit, but you never know. But Oscar, he knows I'll be in Italy. And so hopefully he remembers that we had an exclusive interview with him during preseason so we can catch up with him in Milano Cortina. All right. You heard Lane Lambert earlier in the show referred to Tye Kartye. Lane, that is, has also talked about how, there were times where Tye Kartye maybe, looked a little, I don't want to say frazzled. I can't remember the exact terminology Lane used. I know we talked about it, I think, on that bonus audio podcast I was talking about. But suffice it to say that, and I said this, didn't like Tye Kartye's first preseason game, and he's gotten better. I think he's gotten more confident as things have gone on. But what did Tye have to say about coming into this season? I got to catch up with him earlier today after morning skate. Ready for a new season here. First, I want to take you to the off season. What were some of the things you wanted to make sure you were working on?
Yeah, I think I just wanted to, get faster, my foot speed, get better with the puck, making better decisions, being more confident holding on to it. So that was kind of my focus.
When you come into a season and, coaching staff has changed, is there a little bit of a heightened focus on things, coming in, making sure you know what the new staff wants?
Yeah, I think so. I think you're focused every year, but I think with the new coaching staff, they bring in their new systems, their new special teams. So you really want to be dialed in from the start, just paying attention to what they want.
And, what are some of those conversations that you've had with Coach Lambert and the rest of the staff about what they see in you, what they expect from you this year?
Yeah, I think, had good conversations and just be playing hard and do my thing and just keep playing within the team system and just try and help the team win.
How do you feel the team is as far as kind of establishing how you want to play this season with just one more preseason game?
Yeah, I think throughout the preseason it's getting better every game. Obviously different guys are in and different guys are out in preseason games, but I think collectively as a whole, we've been getting to our identity fast, and then I think the thing is just keeping it throughout the whole game. So if we have a good start, just keep it throughout the second and third.
Get you out of here on this one, but it seems like the intensity was really ramped up early this season. Is that something that you think will pay dividends later in the year?
Yeah, I think that'll definitely help. I don't even know if later in the year, but it'll help right away. I think the intensity and the focus that everybody brought to camp should keep us sharp and make sure we're sharp for the first couple games in the regular season.
Awesome. Thanks, Tye. Tye Kartye joining Locked On Kraken. We appreciate him taking time out to get an exclusive interview with him. That was at Morning Skate. As always, thank you to the Seattle Kraken organization for our credentials, but also hooking us up when we need some time with the players. I loved what Tye Kartye said. And, it goes back to something that we also heard from Ryan Winterton when I asked him what he thought about tonight's preseason game. Tye Kartye talked about the Kraken getting to their identity fast. I thought that was a great phrase. I don't know if that is coming from the coaching staff, but I liked that. I think that encompasses what I've been hearing, what I've been seeing here at preseason. The thing, though, that Tye Kartye also said, which Ryan Winterton said, which we've heard Lane Lambert say, which I have been saying for years about this Kraken team, is it's not about getting to the identity or establishing the identity. It's about keeping it. We heard full 60 from Ryan Winterton. We heard Lane Lambert say there were lulls. We heard, again, keeping it, keeping the identity throughout the course of a game. That's what Tye Kartye said. And that was what did not work with the Seattle Kraken last season. It didn't work. It just, was unfortunately hard to stomach at times. And how much of that had to do with fatigue, back-to-backs, even just the moral defeats, whether players will admit that or not. I think there was a lot going on that impacted this team. So how do you adjust for that? And what is the recovery time for this Kraken team? Let's go back to a few more clips from postgame with Lane Lambert. He's going to talk about fatigue, and then you'll hear me ask him a question at Morning Skate about back-to-backs, rest, recovery, all of those things.
I think we've had 2 days off in 14 days. The preseason ends at a good time for us. I know that our players are somewhat fatigued. We had a couple of days here to get away and do some team building, and then come back, start practice Saturday and get ready for next Thursday. But I will say that every player has given it everything they've got, and they've done a really good job of embracing, what we're asking, and it's still a work in progress. Yeah, well, for me, everybody plays back-to-backs, and you can ask any coach in the league the same question. For me, it's about a mindset. It's a mentality, and, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, but we've been preparing for that right from day one of training camp with, the intensity level, our systems, things that we need to all be on the same page in order to give ourselves a chance to win. And back-to-backs, to me, there's no excuses on a back-to-back. You get out there, you play, and as long as we play as a unit, we'll always have an opportunity to win.
Is there also maybe some strategic rest periods that happen as a part of that?
Well, you certainly, we definitely go through the schedule, month by month, week by week, and plan for whatever rest we're going to need. There's no question that rest is a weapon.
Rest is a weapon, and your Seattle Kraken will get some rest. They'll have some team building. Lane Lambert was asked after the game, what that team building will look like. He did not get specific with the activities. He alluded to dinners and card games, more so, I think, broadly, as in, it's more about spending time with each other. But I'll be curious to hear a little more maybe from the players about what that time off looked like. Again, it seems like there might be an event for season ticket holders. Not sure if any players will be at that, but I like that we saw an intense preseason and training camp where also players were held accountable. We broke things down. We established again that identity and got to the identity fast, like we heard from Tye Kartye. Now it's about reinforcing things. And I think the importance of Lane Lambert taking time during training camp and preseason to at practice stop and talk through things is setting the example, is setting the precedent that we're going to be a team that talks things through. We're going to be a team that handles things in the moment and doesn't let them fester. And if I had to guess, again, I don't really know what the full crux and hiccup was, but there was some drama that happened last season. I mean, the Philip Grubauer thing, I think, is drama in and of itself. But I think that there was some kind of hiccup and disconnect, and Lane Lambert is not one to leave room for ambiguity. He likes to know what's going on. He likes to execute a plan. He likes for everyone to be on the same page as much as possible. And so I think those are good things. Are they going to be enough, though, to make this team competitive? We have our playoff hopefuls roundtable coming up soon. I don't think it's posted. I think it's coming up later this week. So some other folks from the Locked On NHL channel. The Kraken are not a team right now that looks like it can raise out of the bottom of the basement. Not the complete bottom, but we're a bottom team right now in the Pacific Division, let alone in the NHL. I think we're not going to be like super, like we're not going to bomb so much that we're, a bottom feeder for the field of 32. At least I hope not. But we sure did play like we could have been at times and stretches last year. My gut is telling me that Lane can maybe get us a couple of more wins because of, his intensity in some kind of ways, his structure, his ability to get people to buy in. But I don't know that, it's going to be the season 2 Kraken here. I think we have more work to do with the roster. And again, Jason Botterill is making moves, but I say it all the time. I've been using it in the offseason. Jason Botterill got handed the ball with runners on base. And those runners on base should not count against, his earned run average. But those belong to Ron Francis, who's now the president. Lane Lambert did say that when it comes to roster decisions, he and the coaching staff will have their input, but it's also Lambert having conversations with Botterill, and he actually used the terms and the titles, not the names, but he talks about having conversations with the coaching staff, the general manager, and the president. President of the Seattle Kraken is the former general manager, the first general manager, the general manager that kind of got us into some of these conundrums, and that's Ronnie Francis. Speaking of Ronnie Francis, I was in Pittsburgh. I haven't posted the stuff yet, but anytime I see Ronnie Francis when I'm traveling, I will take a photo for you and video likely so we can, I got no beef with Ronnie Francis, but I saw him in PPG Paints. There's a lot of images of him because we know what he's been able to do as a player. I like Ronnie Francis. I don't love some of the moves that he made. And so now Jason's got to figure this out. What does that mean for this season? To be determined. A reminder to be kind to yourself. Please be kind to others and hold fast. Stay true. Loud and proud, you say, let's go Kraken and let's go Mariners. Julio Rodriguez was on the Zamboni today. That was awesome to see him supporting the Kraken. And of course, the Kraken fans sending him lots of love as the M's are in the postseason. But that'll do it for our show. I already said my catchphrase here, but I wanted to get in that Julio thing because I thought it was so cool to see him at the game. I will catch you on the next episode. Peace out, everybody.